Is Giannis still in play for the New York Knicks? Locked on Bucks, Camille Davis joins us to help break it all down.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are locked on to the New York Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a New York City native. I'm a credentialed media member that's been covering the Knicks for nearly a decade, and I'm the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. This is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks. Give you the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 whole days a week. So be sure to join thousands of other fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. Guys, as we noted, I'm going to be joined by Camille Davis, the fantastic co-host of the Locked On Bucks podcast, to do a deep dive on the Bucks offseason. What the heck were they thinking, stretching Damian Lillard to bring in Myles Turner, how that could potentially change the complexion of their defense and maybe clarify their team identity a little bit. We get into Giannis, whether or not he's content in Milwaukee at this point, or if there's still a possibility that he can ask out. Then Camille grills me on the Knicks. We talk a lot about the Knicks offseason, the viability of Tyler Kolek eventually getting traded, and then we talk about how the two teams match up, which is a really fun conversation because the Bucks used to dominate the Knicks, but since Jalen Brunson and most notably OG Anunoby came to town, that has changed. Does Turner shift that at all? Find out next here on Locked On Knicks. All right, guys, as promised, we are crossing it over with Locked On Bucks. It is Camille Davis, the fantastic co-host of the Locked On Bucks podcast and the Monday host of Locked On NBA. Camille, I should probably introduce myself as this is also going on Locked On Bucks. I'm Gavin Schall, host of the Locked On Knicks podcast. We were just talking about it a little bit, but how was your summer? Was it pretty enjoyable?
Yeah, it's been really fun. It's been like a lot of outside. This is the summer I've been the most consistent in working out in my entire life. Like from
congratulations.
That's
awesome.
I'm proud of myself for that one. It's been a good summer. How about you?
I played a lot of pickup hoops, but I did not work out because it's just I've had the same issue my whole life. If I go to the gym and basketball is an option and lifting weights is an option, I'm always going to pick basketball. But that is neither here nor there. What is here and there, maybe, is the Milwaukee Bucks having a very eventful summer, kind of similar to the one the Knicks had a year ago, where it feels like not too many players changed, but because of the one they moved on from, the entire complexion and maybe future of the team changed. I'm sure even Knicks fans are familiar with this, but if they needed a recap, Milwaukee decided to, in a rarely done move, waive and stretch Damian Lillard, who was going to miss this entire season. I believe it was slated to miss this entire season with a torn Achilles. And they did so to steal Myles Turner from their division rivals in just a stunning move. Months later, because I'm sure it was kind of all shocking and crazy in the moment. I'm sure you guys did a million episodes. How is that kind of settled in? Do you like that Milwaukee did that? Where are you kind of at with everything?
Yeah, I really like it. I know in real time, one of my thoughts was like, dang, I kind of feel for Dame in this situation as well. Like just the whole move did not work out in Milwaukee. The Damian Lillard, Giannis partnership had some fruit to it. Like they were the highest scoring duo in the league last year, but it just still wasn't all the way right. And the Bucks realized, with Dame out this upcoming year, got to move on from him. So I felt for Dame at first, but him ending back up in Portland, recently saw reports from him saying how he's just happy right now in this time in his life. So if Dame's happy, Dame's cool. I'm good with that as well. And for the Bucks on the on-court fit, Myles Turner just checks all the boxes of the type of big that you want next to Giannis. Like it's a lot of what Brook Lopez gave you. But he's only 29 instead of 37 like a Brook Lopez. And as Brook Lopez has gotten older, the foot speed was never a strength of his, but it has slowed down more and more. And you saw teams just consistently trying to drag him out of that paint, get him on a perimeter.
Jalen Brunson, that was his happy place. He was meditating out there when that happened.
You can see the smile on his face once he saw 11 in front of him. Like, that's exactly what I want. And Myles Turner isn't necessarily like a Jericho Sims in the sense of like really switchability, but he moves his feet a lot better than Brook Lopez does. So I think that the addition of that is going to work really well for the Bucks. He still can give you that 3-point threat, the rim protection. So again, I think he's a perfect fit next to Giannis.
All right. So talk to me a little bit about the macro reasoning, because I went through like just a tumult of emotions about the move, in the sense, like on one hand, like I think the clinical robotic part of me was like, all right, like I don't, and maybe you disagree with this, like I still don't think Milwaukee is positioned to win a championship. they kind of lose all financial flexibility going forward because of the stretch. And obviously the cap will continue to go up. There will be avenues for Milwaukee to add and improve their team. They're going to be able to trade draft picks again over the next couple of years. While right now they don't have a lot of draft equity. So on one hand, I'm saying like, all right, your goal is to win a championship around Giannis. This guarantees that you're going to be better than you would have been next year, but maybe erases that championship ceiling. And then the other side of that conversation is like, one, like, first of all, and Bucks fans are probably all saying this, listening to a Knicks guy talk about this. Milwaukee's done something the Knicks haven't done in the last 50 years and won a championship. And you can operate under the premise everything else is gravy. And there is like a certain bit of just franchise pride in saying, hey, like, clearly there was a conversation where like Giannis, presumably, you could tell me if I'm off on this, Giannis gave his approval and said, hey, this makes it a lot more likely. I'll be happy to stay here at least for the length of my contract, has that player option in 2 seasons. This is going to make me happy to be a Buck. I think it's become obvious to all of us who are on Giannis watch, which is basically every other team in the NBA, but certainly every other contender in the NBA, right? Like desperate, drooling, like thieves over here saying like, come on, when is he going to ask out? When is he going to ask out? Like I'm not ashamed. I've done an episode on it. And like, it seems like his heart, like he's always wanted the Bucks to put a good enough team around him to justify staying there. And it feels like Myles Turner was the move, plus some of the other moves they made on the periphery were enough for him to say like, all right, this is a place where at the very least we can win 50 games. We can be competitive, maybe best case scenario. We can make the conference finals. And that is good enough for me. And part of my mind, that doesn't feel like enough for a guy who, like, I think at worst is probably the 3rd or 4th best player in the sport to this day. He still has an argument at times for being just the single most dominant force in the NBA, smack dab in the middle of his prime. So I'm talking in circles, Camille. What are your feelings on all that?
Let me start with saying this. I think that the Knicks and the Cavs are in their own tier in the Eastern Conference. Those two teams should be seen as the clear favorites in the Eastern Conference. Those are the teams that people going into the season, if it's not Cavs or Knicks that you're picking, it's kind of like, oh, you're going for a little upset here that you're thinking is going to like lead the East. So I think that's very clear. But I think the Bucks are in that very next tier underneath that, alongside Orlando, Atlanta, Detroit, and Milwaukee. I think they're all kind of in that same tier. Now, I was talking to Sean from Locked On Raptors, and he's saying the Raptors should be in that tier too.
I can't get there. Wow.
I can't get there.
Sean, jeez. Okay, we're going to talk to him next week. That's good to know.
Yeah, just Sean's high on the Raptors this coming year, but I think Magic, Bucks, Hawks, and Pistons are kind of in that same tier. And to your point about, does this move make you a championship contender? No, but I think that it makes you better than what you were last year. And let's keep in mind, this is a Bucks team that hasn't made it out of the first round of the playoffs since 2022, where they made it to the second round. Chris Middleton gets injured in the first round. They go to Boston. They lose in 7 there. And since then, it's been first round exit, first round exit, first round exit. So for this Bucks team, if you make it out the first round, you've already done better than you have the last 3 years. Although the expectation is championship, like the real of it is like, get out the first round right now. Just get out the first round and see what happens. And I think that's why you make this move, because you look around the East and it feels open. Again, Cavs are seen as a favorite alongside the Knicks, but with the injury to Halliburton and Tatum, it changes where you feel you might end up, and who knows what happens. So like, just put the best team around you that you can and try to compete. And I think that this Bucks team is going to be faster, younger, and ultimately play a little bit more of a modern style of basketball than what we've seen before, with Giannis running that point for the team for the most part.
Yeah, and it's worth noting. I mean, I said it earlier, but with just the picks that Milwaukee has out, like, I think maybe there'd be more of an appetite to trade Giannis and go full rebuild if they had the same situation. And I guess the Nets did have to trade back for those picks, but you could say, all right, we can tank and we can try to get a top 3 pick in a loaded draft this year. Not having that option, like, it's nice to keep arguably, I mean, right there with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like the greatest player in franchise history. That is a pretty appealing concept. I guess where are we at with Giannis at this point? Like, is he pretty happy coming into the season? Like, is there any world, like, I don't really see a scenario where he's traded before the deadline this year. Is there a world where he's traded in the next calendar year? Or do you think, like what I hinted at before, like the idea that there was a conversation between him and the Bucks front office, and he said, you do this because that is a real commitment from Milwaukee, right? They are literally using every mechanism available to them to make this team better. Like he said, I see what you guys are trying to do. Even if it hasn't gone perfect, I appreciate your commitment to me. I'm going to commit to you guys for the rest of my contract.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen any like hard, concrete reports of that, but we
Mhm.
have heard John Horst and Doc Rivers make mention of the fact they've been in communication with Giannis. When Eurobasket started, Doc Rivers was over there alongside. I know Darvin Ham was there. I think Horst was there as well. And then we did learn shortly thereafter, we see them there that the NASA's re-signed with the Bucks as well. So, I mean, that alone gives me the faith that throughout this season, at the very least, you will see Giannis in the Bucks uniform. But I think the nature of having one of the greatest players in the NBA is that every offseason you're going to hear that same news cycle of other teams want him. So where does he want to be at? And until another extension is signed, it's going to be a topic of conversation. But I think for this season, Giannis is all in with what Milwaukee has going on for him. And he liked going to battle with Gary Trent Jr., with AJ Green, with Kevin Porter Jr., Bobby Portis Jr. last year in the playoffs. Like, I think that this Bucks team, although a lot of the pieces are returning, are going to play a little bit differently, and that's going to cause them to play a bit better than what we actually saw as stretches last year.
Man, a lot of juniors in the Bucks. I don't know if I put
So
that
many.
together before this conversation. That's a lot. That's hard on you guys. But we'll be back in a second. You're gonna ask me some questions about the Knicks, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the Bucks, because this matchup has had some real twists and turns over the years. Milwaukee dominated for a long time. The Knicks have dominated of late.
Yeah.
Will Myles Turner change that? We're gonna talk about that all soon here on Locked On Knicks and Locked On Bucks.
And now we talk to you about our friends from Monarch Money, because, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether that's 401ks, whether that's properties, investments, you name it. And when you do not have the full picture, you can end up leaving a lot of money on that table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting for you. You can actually link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and you can finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I personally use Monarch Money. Me and my husband share it. I love the fact that it's easy for multiple people to use this app. Really, really simple for conversations between me and the mister. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA.
All right, we are back. Locked On Knicks, Locked On Bucks, crossing over. Camille, I will pass you the proverbial mic. What do you want to know about the New York Knicks?
I got some questions for you, Gavin, here, because I mean, the Knicks had a fantastic season last year. I know it ended in a way that Knicks fans weren't hoping for, but still, like, the progress that was made there, I thought was impressive. And after the season, Tom Thibodeau gets fired, and a lot of people nationally were shocked, appalled even, that the Knicks would do such a thing after them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals and making that run last season. People who followed the Knicks, though, or listen to Locked On Knicks, I know they weren't as shocked to see that move actually happened. But my first question here starts with, what changes are you hoping or expecting to see from Mike Brown being in that head coaching seat that you weren't getting from Tom Thibodeau, which led to his ultimate firing?
Yeah, I think the one word to sum it up would be flexibility, because the one word to sum up Tom Thibodeau would be rigidity, and that was a strength in a way. Like, if I could make an analogy, it was like a big oak tree, right? Like, the Knicks were tough. Like, they consistently over 5 years just beat the crap out of the worst teams in the NBA, right? And they were competitive night in, night out. They fought through injuries. They played long minutes. Like, there was a certain fight to them and like a competitive spirit that Tom Thibodeau brought, that like he brought professionalism and respect back to this franchise, right? And as someone who was called for him to be fired on and off over the last 3 or 4 years, I have to acknowledge there's a world where this backfires on the Knicks, right? And they lose something that like they didn't even like maybe fully appreciate they have, and they don't get as far as they did, because he was the best coach this team had in the last 25 years. That being said, I kind of think it's hard for this to be a mistake, because I never saw a championship ceiling with a Tom Thibodeau coach team. Look, you give him the Thunder roster. I'm not saying like he's not capable of coaching a team to a title. I don't think he was capable of having a team play like way beyond its talent in like a championship context, right? More of a floor raiser than like a true ceiling raiser. And Mike Brown was a fascinating hire in that, like, I think his reputation and his profile for most of his career was somewhat similar to Tom Thibodeau, right? Like a little rigid, little old school in some ways. But I do think there are some encouraging signs that he's going to play a deeper bench than Tom Thibodeau, very famously. I'm saying this stat every single episode, so I apologize to the Knicks listeners, but I think it'll be fascinating for the Bucks ones. The Knicks starting lineup played 1,800 possessions last year. That was about 500 possessions more than any other five-man group in the NBA. And throughout 2025, that lineup was not good. In fact, they were actively bad. They were a net negative, which didn't make sense with all the talent, right? It was Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns. That at the minimum should be a plus lineup. And I think it was because of Tom Thibodeau's unwillingness to acknowledge that lineup with Josh Hart didn't work. His team started putting their bigs on Josh Hart, their wings on Karl Anthony Towns. And the Knicks never really found a schematic answer to that. And they didn't find a strategic answer to that in terms of making an adjustment and maybe starting Deuce McBride, or eventually, it took until game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals where Tom Thibodeau was fine, I'll start Mitchell Robinson. And even that only happened because Josh Hart said hey, I think we should do this. I'm willing to go to the bench. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Let's do this. So the biggest thing is even if the starting lineup's ultimately the same, and it wouldn't shock me if that's the case, we get one more schematic versatility in that lineup, more time with Jalen Brunson off the ball, maybe more versatile coverages defensively. Tom Thibodeau essentially played no zone while zone defense I think was largely up over the NBA. The Knicks didn't do it except for inbound plays. It was a lot of Karl Anthony Towns drop, which generally did not go well. Mikal Bridges struggled as an on ball, one of the worst screen navigators in basketball last year. Again, I think some of that is because Cat was so exceptionally poor in drop a lot of the time, but it just didn't work. So I'm hoping for new scheme. And then even if the starting lineup is ultimately the same, and I'm not sure if it will be, but if it is, we just get a bunch of different lineups. Look at a team like the Cavs. I think their most used lineup played something like 500 possessions together. If there could be some middle ground for the Knicks between those two, and they just try a bunch of different lineups in the playoffs, they know what they want to go to instead of figuring it out on the fly. I think they're going to be much better equipped to have success in the playoffs. And that's saying something given they got within 2 games of the NBA Finals.
And that's relatable because on the Bucks side of things, fans and other media pundits were confused as to why Doc Rivers waited so long to make a change to the starting lineup in the playoffs this year, when you saw at the end of the regular season that the juniors alongside Giannis and AJ Green, the lineup worked. So it was why are we waiting and delaying so long to actually move into this? And probably pulled that one a little bit too late into the playoff run against the Pacers. But you made mention of the fact that one thing that you're hoping for is to see a little bit more flexibility with the lineups, and maybe even seeing some more guys in the ultimate rotation. And in the offseason this year, you guys signed Yabusele, you got Jordan Clarkson, recently picked up an old friend of the Bucks here, Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah.
How deep I have 2 questions on this one. One is, how deep do you want the rotation to go? And then how deep do you expect it to be? And is there any difference between those 2 realities?
That's a great question. It's one we had Chris Persianen on, who covers the Knicks for Clutch Points, and I was asking him wait, so are the Knicks am I just Tibbs pilled? Can the Knicks really play a 10-man rotation? Is that allowed? Will they get fined by Adam Silver? Will MSG just blow up? What's going to happen? And I think the answer might be the same for both, in that they will play a 10-man rotation. And before I would have said 9, because it feels like they have enough quality depth. And even before bringing Brogdon and Shamet, I thought they had real questions 10 through 15, and they were going to have issues if there were injuries. And last year, the Knicks were exceptionally lucky from a health point, outside of Jalen Brunson missing 15 games and Josh Hart and Karl Anthony Towns playing through issues. They didn't really have a point in the season where they were missing their top end talent. And that was needed because the Knicks had a pretty poor bench last year. And now it actually feels like they have the bench to handle that. But even given that, and how strong they're 6 through 9, where I was all right, they're going to go 6 through 9. You're going to play Jalen Brunson more 34 minutes a game. Towns, Mikal, OG will be more low 30s instead of high 30s. Josh Hart could go all the way from top 10 in the NBA in minutes to maybe more 26 to 28 minutes per game. And now with Malcolm Brogdon, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, are they just going to be the Cavs where no one plays over 32 minutes per game? Because I would be surprised if Malcolm Brogdon did not have offers, even from other contenders, to have a guaranteed spot in the rotation. And at least as of now, the Knicks have to make a trade to even accommodate him and Landry Shamet to be on this roster. But assuming Brogdon does ultimately end up on the roster, I think that'll be the case. I would be surprised if the Knicks didn't at least offer him a minimum 12 minutes per game at the start of the season. And in turn, I think they're going to have to play 10 guys. And I think they're going to have to be really sparse with minutes. And maybe that changes over the course of the season. Maybe someone doesn't perform up to expectation. Maybe they have injuries. But on day one, I think it's very possible they're playing 10 players.
Ooh, see, and I have another question about that lineup, and maybe we come back to this on the other side of the break because you guys have a guy on your team that I have a personal, like, a lot of respect for,
Mhm.
Tyler Kolek, Marquette's own, Milwaukee University. I'm an alumni of Marquette University, so I do wonder too, with the additions, how does a young player like him, where does he fall into the rotation for your team? This is more of a selfish question. I just got to see how my guy from Marquette is doing, but I am curious with a younger guy and if you have other young players on your roster that you're kind of like, these moves actually might stunt their development, but also when you're chasing championships, sometimes that young player development isn't high on the priority list.
I hate to tell you, but the answer might disappoint you. We'll talk about it in a sec on Locked On Knicks and Locked On Bucks. First, we want to tell you about some of our old friends here at Locked On Knicks and Locked On Bucks over at Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or service provider. The first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets me manage business calls and texts from a single app. The shared inbox feature is an absolute game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat, and their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, what's up? We are here to wrap this one up. Locked On Knicks, Locked On Bucks. To answer your Tyler Kolek question, first of all, I want to say I also have a soft spot for Tyler Kolek. I think he's awesome. He's just flat out like one of the best passers I've ever seen, which is a crazy thing to say for someone who maybe played a total of like 150 NBA minutes last year. But I would say if you could take passing as purely an isolated skill, I would not be surprised if he was one of the top like 10 to 15 passers in the NBA. The question with Tyler Kolek is, can he defend well enough to stay on the floor? Can he score well enough to force people to guard him to access that passing? And he did a pretty good job. He had like a 3-game stretch when Jalen Brunson was out, and I think Campaign was injured, where he got into rotation last year, and he had something like a 22-1 assist to turnover ratio, like just crazy efficiency passing the basketball. He just, again, was not able to score, and was he wasn't quite as bad as I thought he would be, but he was certainly a liability on the defensive end. And the Knicks sort of boxed themselves in drafting him because there's no real way to play him and Jalen Brunson together, right? It's not like Deuce McBride, where Deuce like defends above his size and weight and is like an elite screen navigator and is such a good shooter that you can make that work and potentially like that should be their starting line, but I would argue it should be. Tyler just hasn't shown that yet. And at 24 years old, the Knicks are going to have to trade someone if Brogdon and Shamet are both going to be on this roster. And a lot of the reporting is centering around the idea that that's the plan right now. And the names we've heard are like the long shot ones are Deuce or Mitchell Robinson. And that would be in some kind of bigger move, presumably to bring in another piece for the rotation, or one of Pacome Dadier and Tyler Kolek. Pacome makes more sense, and that would open up a lot more financial flexibility for the Knicks, and they'd be more likely to be able to bring in a 15th man earlier in the season, and it would generally just make things more comfortable for them. But he's only, I think he just turned 20 years old, while Tyler's 24, turning 25 during the season, and does not have a clear role in this team, while the Knicks have a pretty obvious need for like a 6'8", potentially two-way wing with some development. So I think odds are, and this could be bad news in that he's moving on from his first NBA home, maybe good news. Maybe the Milwaukee Bucks will be the team to trade for him. But I do think the Knicks are, I'd put it at like 40% chance they trade Tyler Kolek before the season starts.
Could see that happening. Just had to ask because I know you're watching them more consistently. I was like, man, Tyler, when I would see the flashes, I'm just like seeing the Marquette guys in the league. But something I kind of touched on as well, and I'm just curious to know where you think, as we are ramping up for the season to get started in almost a month, a little bit over a month now, the regular season kicks off. And I mentioned to you that I think that the Knicks and the Cavs are in a tier of their own in the Eastern Conference. If the Knicks aren't a top 2 seed this season, will it be considered a disappointing season? Like, are expectations in New York this season like it's finals or nothing? Like, we made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Yeah. If we don't get back there into the finals, the season is not a success. If we're not top 2, I'm not sure if the seeding regular season matters in New York. But like, what will make the season disappointing? And I mean, ultimately, the championship is the goal, but like, what are expectations for the Knicks?
Yeah, I think two different answers there. I don't think the seed should matter all that much. I think the Knicks should be a top 2 seed, like as talented as Orlando is, and they should. I think Orlando has a chance to be a monster regular season team. It wouldn't shock me if it all comes together and they win 55 games. To me, they're kind of the biggest threat of those teams to jump the Knicks. I could see the Pistons like topping out high 40s. I think the Hawks are going to be quite good, but there's just some injury concerns there. I think it's going to take some time for all those pieces to fit together. I think Milwaukee, like there's less of range on them than other teams. Like I just think if Giannis is healthy, they should win 50 games, but I don't really see a world where they get to mid to high 50s. I think Orlando's probably
50, we'll be happy. Ain't done that in a couple of years.
Yeah. So maybe high 40s, but like, I don't know. I think Giannis just kind of guarantees that as a baseline. I think that, so I say all that to say that it should be a top 2 seed, but with injuries and also the idea that like Tom Thibodeau pressed so hard for that home court advantage and tried to win every game. And I would much prefer if the Knicks prioritize, right, just being 100% healthy, 100% rested going into the postseason. Like there's no Boston looming where it's like, I do not want to see them in the second round and have to go there. And granted, the Knicks saw that boogie monster and conquered that boogie monster, but that was the fear last year. The Knicks were trying to avoid that, and they ultimately could not avoid that matchup in the second round, and ended up working out for them. Like I don't put Cleveland in that tier of threat, right? Like, I think even like I don't think the Knicks will feel any fear like walking. Is it still Quicken Loans Arena? I'm not sure, but we'll feel any fear like walking into Cleveland for a game 1. They might not win that series, but I think they should be fine with that. The priority in the regular season should be health and just figuring out exactly what your roster is, given that this is probably going to be the team for the foreseeable future, and just experimenting both tactically and lineup wise as much as possible. But in terms of playoff result, I think anything short of the NBA Finals is a disappointment. And look, Bucks fans know this better than anyone, right? Like you could have an injury, and all of a sudden, like you could say, all right, well, we can't say this was a bust because Giannis got hurt, right? So we don't know what this team would have gone, or Dame tore his Achilles. So we don't know what would have happened. But if this team is healthy, like when are they going to have a better opportunity, right? The Pacers are out. The Celtics, maybe they get Tatum back late in the season, like zero front court rotation. The Celtics are out as threats. Milwaukee, in my mind, is not as scary as they were a few years ago. Orlando is good, but that's a group that's never won a series. The Knicks just beat Cleveland a few years ago. Cleveland's never gotten out of the second round. Like the path is there for the Knicks. This is far and away the best opening day roster they probably had in 30 years, right? Since like the heyday of Patrick Ewing. I don't think there's an excuse for a healthy-ish version of the Knicks to not make the finals. And that's not saying Cleveland isn't very good. Like I think that would be a toss-up series between those two teams. I just think if you're going to do it, this is the year to do it.
That makes a lot of sense for me. I think expectations for the Bucks, I've been saying, I think that they should probably finish between 4 and 6 in the East, somewhere in that range this year. If something happened where the Bucks turn out and they have like a top 5 defense, top 10 offense, and they end up just kind of racking up wins and people are like, I could see them jumping 3rd, maybe 2nd, but that's like literal best case scenario. Everything broke right. Kevin Porter Jr. took a jump. AJ Green took a jump. Gary Trent Jr., Kyle Kuzma playing better than what we saw last year in a Bucks jersey as well. So if all those things happen, I think they could jump that. But realistically, I'm thinking that they'll probably be in that 4 to 6 range, really just trying to fight and make sure to stay out of the play-in. But again, I'm going into this season, and people who haven't been tapped into Locked On Bucks might be surprised to hear this, but I'm very excited for this upcoming season. Loved having Dame on the team because of the excitement of just the offensive possibilities with Dame and with Giannis. They were the leading scoring duo in the NBA last year with 55 points. Going to be really hard to replace the points that Dame gave you and the assists. He was the assist leader for the Bucks last year as well. So you're losing some of the playmaking, some of that 3-point ability as well. But I think the team overall fits a lot better. We talk about like the weak link theory in the NBA, and with the roster as it is, like for all of the offensive genius that Dame gives you, he still is a 6'1" point guard that's a little bit older now, and defense has never been a strong suit for him. And now the Bucks are going to be able to put in some guards that can lock up a little bit too. Like Ryan Rollins is a name that most people don't know, but he's somebody I think could have a really big year for the Bucks as well. In addition to a Kevin Porter Jr., Cole Anthony can be that offense off the bench for you with the Bobby Portis Jr. as well. So I like the options. And Jericho Sims is somebody who I'm not sure his role in the rotation for the Bucks, but it's a nice option to have a big like Jericho Sims to come out there. It's just spacing with him and Giannis, they got to make sure that they do that correctly. But yeah, for the Bucks, I'm really excited for this season. Honestly, probably even more excited than I was last year.
Wow.
Heading into the season, just because it feels different. Like I've been saying, I want this Bucks team to be constructed where Giannis is like the oldest Buck. Like we have to go that route. He cannot be middle of the pack. He has to be the oldest guy. And we're there. Him and Bobby and Myles Turner are really your OGs. Gary Harris is on the roster as well, but not someone I expect to have a lot of playing time. So they've subscribed to that, and I'm really excited to see that in action.
Yeah, I think there was definitely just a pressure of expectations, and it was almost like a couple that didn't quite work, but you really wanted it to work between Dame and Giannis, and like that being gone, like there is just a clarity of identity that I think will help Milwaukee, right? Like there's no ambiguity, like who's getting the ball, like do you have to make it so like Dame is hitting Giannis rolling versus just Giannis barreling downhill? Like do you have to do that dance just to say you tried doing that dance, even if it wasn't quite working? And now it's like, nope, like it's like offense runs through Giannis at all times. And maybe that caps the ceiling for Milwaukee, but I do think it helps them in the regular season, and maybe in the playoffs, like it helps them just because Dame and Giannis, like partially due to injuries, we're just never able to quite find that rhythm. All right, we'll do this real quick because I know we're running low on time, but last 5 matchups between the Knicks and the Bucks. The Knicks have won all 5 of them after losing the previous 9. This is what I didn't quite remember this. The Knicks have won those last 5 matchups by an average of 17 points per game. They lost the previous 9 matchups by an average of 12 points per game. So it went from Milwaukee like whooping some butt to the Knicks like stepping up and whooping some butt. The most obvious reason in terms of what changed was Jrue Holiday leaving Milwaukee, leaving no real point of attack option on Jalen Brunson, who was obviously not there for the first 6 or so games of that 9-game Bucks winning streak. But like he has just been feasting the last few years against the Milwaukee Bucks. Like we said it before, like he starts drooling when he sees Brook Lopez. I think it was like AJ Green who like came in to guard him, like Doc Rivers and MSG, and Brunson I think was a little insulted by that and just spent the next 2 quarters like absolutely cooking him in MSG early last season. And then on the other end of the floor, like I think it was really big for the Knicks to have OG Anunoby. And look, there is no like Giannis stopper in the NBA, but OG is one of the few defenders in the league that's like freakish enough and has the movement skills and the strength to at least say, hey, we could throw him on Giannis, and with minimal help, Giannis will hit 30. It'll probably be a pretty efficient 30. There'll be a few loud dunks, but you don't have to worry about him scoring 60 if you're not doubling every single time. I'm sure the Knicks still doubled plenty, but it is a difference maker to have OG Anunoby in that matchup. And I'm curious your take if anything changes in the matchup this year. I do agree with you that having Turner, and like you took the words out of my mouth earlier, like having Turner is the single biggest thing, and just having some coverage versatility, someone who like has experience hanging on an island with Jalen Brunson in high stakes games and like holding his own and like not just getting toasted like Brook Lopez, or not giving up walk-in threes like Brook Lopez did. I think that alone helps Milwaukee a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Brunson is a drop killer, and that's the primary defensive system that the Bucks love to run, especially with Brook Lopez out there. Like he is so efficient in that mid range. He likes the floaters. He just has a really crafty game. So we're giving him space. He's going to take it, and gladly so. So I think for this year coming up, that's a test for the Bucks. Like they did not do well against New York. They didn't do well against Cleveland. They didn't do well against Boston. They didn't do well against any of the top teams in the East last year. So these are matchups for me where I'm really like, let's see how you actually match up throughout the season with some of the top competition in the East. And for the Knicks, my concern for the Bucks is like, I love that trio of Kevin Porter Jr., AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr. running out there on the court. But your tallest guy there is 6'5". So like for positional size point guard, sure, you got it. Shooting guard a little bit, but on the wing, I think the Bucks just kind of lack a bigger wing defensively. And especially against a team like New York, where you guys are pretty much all big wings and Jalen Brunson and then Cat there, it can be difficult. But a positive is that a lot of offenses tend to run through those bigger wings, like in Boston, where you got to deal with Tatum and Brown and try to figure out how you're stopping 2 elite wings there. So I think the Bucks will have a little bit of a better showing this upcoming season. They're going to have to throw a lot of different guys at Jalen Brunson. That's going to be the question of how can you stop them? And for the Knicks, how can you stop Giannis? But again, few more proven options on the Knicks to at least throw at Giannis than what the Bucks have shown so far to throw at Brunson.
Yeah, I do think it'll be interesting because at times last year, and almost every team did this, like the Bucks would just throw Damian Lillard on Mikal Bridges, and Tom Thibodeau did not really take advantage of that. And he just kind of like
Mhm.
let Dame off the hook, let him sit in the corner. But to be fair, some of that's on Mikal Bridges, who like our biggest complaint Knicks fans have about him, I think on both ends of the floor is like, and maybe the reason he's never missed a game in his career, just like an unwillingness to take contact, like 8 game stretches where he doesn't shoot a single free throw. And I'm hoping Mike Brown, like who's put an effort over the offseason to form a relationship with Mikal, can imbue a little bit of saying like, hey, if they're like, obviously it's not going to be Dame, but even if it is like an objectively good defender, like if you have 4 inches on the guy, like even if you don't want to get all the way to the rim, you want to get into like your mid-range game, like that's fine. You're good enough at that. But like, give me a few possessions where you're attacking that and making Milwaukee uncomfortable with the matchup.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the Knicks added depth this year will be another factor and maybe something they can take advantage of. But Milwaukee, to your point, having Cole Anthony, like Gary Trent Jr., maybe to buoy some bench units, they'll certainly have the scoring to keep up with like the Jordan Clarksons, Gershon Yabuseles. I just think the Knicks having that second star with Cat and the versatility of their wings could be a difference maker where they're going to play 48 minutes, I think, with just like to your point on weak link theory, just competent NBA players across the board. And that is going to pose a real threat to the Bucks. But Camille, this has been a great conversation. Can you let Knicks fans know where they can find all your great work if they want to learn a little bit more about the Bucks?
Yeah, for sure. Monday through Friday, as you guys know, all the everydayers know, Locked On Bucks. You can catch me and Justin Garcia, the other co-host of Locked On Bucks, over there. As Gavin mentioned at the top of the show, also doing Locked On NBA on Mondays as well. So yeah, that's all the NBA coverage for me outside of the Technical Foul podcast. I do weekly where we talk NBA, NFL, and pro wrestling. And then I also have some Packers pods, but I'm not sure this is the audience for some Packers pods.
Hey, you know, Green Bay's cooking. I mean, best team in the league so far. I can't talk any crap. I'm a Giants fan. So we'll end it right there. Check out Locked On Knicks wherever you can find podcasts. We'll talk to you soon on Locked On Knicks and Locked On Bucks.